Imagine walking through a museum of extinct species, some that vanished before you were born, and others that disappeared during your lifetime. Now imagine future generations walking through a museum that includes us. As our planet transforms under the weight of ecological collapse, rising temperatures, and resource depletion, we face a profound ethical question that few dare to ask. Is it right to bring new life into a world that may become uninhabitable? Today we explore the ethical crossroads where our biological imperative to reproduce meets our moral responsibility to future generations. This isn't just about having children, it's about the fundamental relationship between existence, suffering, and hope, and what we owe to those who have no voice in the decision of their creation. Step outside for a moment. Feel the air. Look at the birds, the trees, the sky. These elements of our world that seemed eternal are now revealing their fragility. Each year brings new records, hottest summers, strongest storms, more species vanishing. The world your grandparents knew is gone. The world you know is leaving. What world will exist for those born today? The philosopher Hans Jonas introduced what he called the imperative of responsibility, arguing that our ethics must extend to future generations. Act so that the effects of your action are compatible with the permanence of genuine human life. But what does this mean when genuine human life itself seems increasingly uncertain? We face projections of food system collapse by 2050, water wars, uninhabitable regions due to heat, and mass migration unlike anything in human history. A child born today will be only in their 20s. Do we have the right to create consciousness that will witness this unfolding reality? Some argue that bringing children into this world is an act of hope, a statement of faith in human ingenuity and resilience. Others consider it a form of moral gambling with lives that have no say in the bet. Both perspectives speak to deep truths about what it means to be human. The ancient Stoics believed that virtue lies in accepting what we cannot change, while working diligently on what we can. Applied to our question, this wisdom suggests a balance. We cannot know with certainty what future awaits, but we can shape our actions around the possibilities we foresee. Philosopher David Benatar proposes a more radical view in his antinatalism, arguing that coming into existence is always a harm. He suggests that while life contains both pleasure and pain, the absence of pain is good, while the absence of pleasure is merely neutral if no one exists to experience its absence. By this asymmetry, never existing would be preferable to existence, even in the best circumstances. But this view challenges our deepest intuitions. Most of us feel that life, despite its sufferings, contains meaning and value worth experiencing. Simone de Beauvoir argued that human freedom finds purpose precisely in creating meaning within an uncertain future. Our projects, including parenthood, connect us to a future beyond our individual existence. The ethical question deepens when we consider intergenerational justice. John Rawls proposed we consider justice from behind a veil of ignorance, not knowing which generation we belong to. If you didn't know whether you would be born in 2025 or 2012-25, what world would you want to create? What policies would you support? What sacrifices would you make? What decisions about creating new life would you consider ethical? Here we encounter a profound paradox. The very existence of future generations depends on our decision to create them, yet our moral concern for their welfare might suggest not creating them at all. This is what philosophers call the non-identity problem. How can we harm someone by bringing them into existence, when the alternative isn't a better existence, but no existence at all? Consider this thought experiment. Imagine two possible futures. In future A, humans continue reproducing as climate change worsens, creating generations who will face unprecedented hardships. In future B, humans gradually stop reproducing, allowing humanity to slowly fade as ecological systems collapse? Which future contains more suffering? Which contains more meaning? Which would you choose? These are not abstract questions. Young people today are increasingly choosing to remain childless, citing climate anxiety and ethical concerns about the future. A recent survey found that 39% of young adults are hesitant to have children due to fears about what the world will become. Before we continue deeper into this paradox, I'd like to take a moment to ask, if these ideas resonate with you, consider subscribing to this channel. We explore these profound philosophical questions that affect our lives in ways we don't often recognize. Your subscription helps us continue creating content that examines the unseen ethical dimensions of our existence. Perhaps we're approaching this question from the wrong angle. Instead of asking whether we should create new life, maybe we should ask what obligations creating life entails. Philosopher Christine Korsgaard argues that bringing someone into existence creates special obligations toward them, not just to provide basic necessities, but to work toward a world worthy of their existence. This reframes our ethical question. The act of creating life becomes inseparable from the responsibility to preserve the conditions that make a dignified life possible. Becoming a parent in an age of ecological uncertainty might then be seen not as an irresponsible gamble, but as a profound commitment to fight for the future. Consider the indigenous concept of 7 generations thinking, where decisions are made considering their impact 7 generations into the future. This wisdom suggests that our connection to future generations isn't just about whether to create them, but about how our actions today shape their possibilities. There's a difference between bringing children into a challenging world and bringing them into a world where we've abdicated responsibility for addressing those challenges. The former acknowledges life's inherent struggles, the latter represents a moral failure. Perhaps the most ethical approach combines clear-eyed realism about our planetary crisis with an unwavering commitment to change course. If we choose to bring new life into this world, we must also choose to fight with everything we have to make that world inhabitable, not just physically, but morally and spiritually as well. We stand at an unprecedented crossroads in human history. For the first time, we must seriously consider whether continuing our species in its current form is ethical, given what we know about the future we're creating. This question penetrates to the core of what we value and who we believe ourselves to be. There is no single right answer. Each person must wrestle with this question according to their own moral compass. What matters is that we approach it with the gravity it deserves, neither turning away from hard truths nor surrendering to despair. In the words of philosopher Václav Havel, hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. Perhaps our task is not to resolve the paradox, but to live within it consciously, making choices that honour both the miracle of existence and its tremendous responsibility. I leave you with this question. If you knew that future generations would judge our time harshly for what we did or failed to do, how would that change your actions today? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this vital conversation.